All right, let's get right into it. On September 2nd, 2025, the FAA dropped a really critical Airworthiness Directive for all Boeing 787s. We're talking about AD 2025-18-02. Now, this one addresses a subtle but pretty serious risk in the passenger oxygen system. So let's break down exactly what you need to know.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to walk through this directive in 5 clear steps. We'll start with the unsafe condition itself. Then we'll get into which aircraft are in scope. After that, it's all about the required actions, the cost impact, and we'll wrap up with a final call to action for your teams. So first up, the core safety issue. What's the fundamental problem that actually got this AD started in the first place?
Well, this directive falls squarely under ATA Code 35, which, as you know, is all about the aircraft's oxygen system. The problem itself is actually a mechanical one. It turns out that on certain passenger service units, or PSUs, the ones in the center stowage bins, the oxygen supply tubing can get kinked when it's installed. It's one of those small details, but it has some really serious potential safety implications. And the FAA isn't mincing words here. A kinked tube isn't just some minor maintenance finding. It could mean a total failure of the supplemental oxygen supply. And in that rare but absolutely critical event of a cabin depressurization, this could lead to serious injury for passengers. This right here is the unsafe condition this AD is designed to eliminate. So, you're probably wondering, which aircraft and which components are we actually talking about here? Let's take a look at the scope. The applicability is pretty straightforward. It's comprehensive. This AD covers all Boeing 787 models, the -8, the -9, and the -10. Every single Dreamliner in service is affected by this directive. Now, to put that in perspective, the FAA estimates this impacts about 119 airplanes on the U.S. registry alone. And interestingly, that number was actually revised up from an initial estimate. Why? Well, operators pointed out that these PSUs are roadable parts, which means the potential scope across entire fleets is way bigger. And here's the crucial detail for your parts department. This isn't about every single PSU out there. It specifically targets certain part numbers that were manufactured in or before May of 2020. Any unit made after that date or an older one that's already been modified and labeled correctly is considered good to go. Okay, let's move on to the most critical section for your planning and maintenance teams. What exactly has to be done? The FAA has laid out a really clear 3-part mandate. First, you've got a one-time inspection of all affected PSU assemblies. Second, if you find any kinked tubing, you have to perform on-condition actions. That means rerouting the tube or just replacing it. And third, and this is effective immediately, you are prohibited from installing any unmodified affected part. And here's a really important point, especially for you planners out there: the timeline. The original proposal was for 24 months, but after getting feedback from the industry, the FAA extended the final rule to 36 months. And that's a huge deal, right? It's a big concession that gives operators a lot more flexibility to line this work up with existing heavy maintenance schedules and hopefully avoid any unnecessary downtime. The FAA also listened to feedback and added an optional way to comply. Operators can now choose to simply replace an affected PSU with a newer, compliant part, one made from June 2020 onwards. This gives you some really valuable flexibility. You could do the repair work more efficiently in a shop environment instead of having to do it on the aircraft. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the business side of this, the estimated operational and financial impact for U.S. operators. The FAA has crunched the numbers, and they've calculated the maximum cost per aircraft. This includes up to 25 work hours for the inspection and any rerouting that might be needed, bringing the total to $2,125. Now, what if an inspection shows that the oxygen tube itself is damaged and you have to replace it? Well, there's an additional on-condition cost for that. It's estimated at a max of $795 per affected part. That number includes about $30 for the part and up to 9 hours of labor. So this chart kind of puts those numbers in perspective. The main cost is the labor for the inspection and any rerouting you might have to do. That on-condition replacement cost is really just a secondary possibility. It's also worth pointing out that the FAA mentioned that some or maybe even all of these costs could be covered under warranty, which would obviously reduce the final hit to operators. So what does this all mean for you? Let's wrap this up by summarizing the key actions you need to take to make sure your fleet stays safe and compliant. Here's your takeaway checklist. First and foremost, your compliance plan has to hit that 36-month deadline. That's going to take some tight coordination between camo, planning, and maintenance. Next, your supply chain has to immediately stop the installation of any non-compliant parts. And finally, remember, the official AD and the Boeing service bulletins, those have to be your single source of truth for everything you do.
And that brings us to our final thought. It's a direct question for every 787 operator, every camo manager, and every maintenance planner out there. The directive is final, and the clock is officially ticking. Is your fleet's compliance plan for AD 2025-18-02 finalized? And, more importantly, is it scheduled?